Hello, Seiiti Arata. So let's talk about repetitive thoughts. They are part of our lives, and it is important for us to understand how they work so we have more harmony and consistency in our choices. What are these habitual thoughts? Let's go to some examples. When you get one gift which was unexpected and automatically you say, well, you shouldn't do that because you are such a horrible person. You're basically criticizing the other person instead of saying, thanks, it's great. Or when you say something like, somebody asks you for a favor, and then you say, sure, it's going to be great to help you. But actually, it was the type of commitment that you couldn't say yes to. And when you are suffering in the middle of a very complicated situation, you're thinking, why did I say yes to this? There are also the moments when you're talking to somebody and they present you a very interesting idea, but instead of you saying, wow, that's such an interesting idea, tell me more about it, you start to criticize the other person, saying, yes, but, or what if? See, there are some types of people who only communicate by pointing the faults in the reasoning of others. That's not a very good way to connect, right? So in our communication, we have all these types of habits. They are automatic, a little bit like the desire to have a coffee after lunch. They are unconscious, sometimes uncontrollable. They can go to a very superficial level of saying things like, you know what I mean, man? Or something more emotional, more deep inside of us. These are all repetitive thoughts and behaviors that with time, they can become habits. So in our quest to have greater awareness, we want to avoid the behavior that is not congruent with what we really want. Beware of the destructive habits. Disagreeing with everything is a type of a habit. Looking for exceptions or flaws in the logic of the other person is also a habit. It's just like the person who opens a book and tries to find errors and mistakes in spelling or punctuation, and they don't really pay attention to the real message. That is also a type of a habit. Not being able to prioritize your own projects, that's also a habit. See, there are people who say that, oh yeah, I'd like to dedicate more time for myself, for my projects, I would like to study more, I would like to eat better, be more fit, but then the first invitation they receive, like, hey, there's the birthday of the dog of my cousin's nephew, they go, oh yeah, of course, let's go. And they completely forget about their own plans. Feed your positive habits. Of course, we also have the positive habits. These are the great virtues. Patience, it's a habit. Curiosity is a habit. Imagine you are in a situation in which your plans got frustrated. You invested a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of resources. You did hard, honest work. For some unexpected reason, beyond your control, things went wrong. In this moment, some people will immediately get into a moment of fury and they start to despair and curse and be extremely angry. But instead of that, we could cultivate the habit of patience, of perseverance, of that stoic resilience, of moving forward and not being affected by these unforeseen events, because actually we know that unexpected things tend to happen. They are already kind of part of the plan. In addition to controlling our reaction to these types of events, we can also cultivate our positive habits to interpret the facts in a more rational way. Inventing stories is also a habit. So what do I mean by inventing stories? It is when we create a narrative explaining something that's happening around us, even though we do not have the concrete and absolute proofs about that type of event. However, we create our own narrative and we start to believe it. For example, I'm driving, somebody suddenly appears in front of me and accelerates, and then I think, wow, that person is trying to humiliate me and to basically, say I'm a horrible driver. That is one type of interpretation. I could also think that maybe inside of that car there is a family having an emergency and going to the hospital. So what type of interpretation do I take? The interpretation is that, really, I have no idea. Because on the one side, I don't want you to be creating a cute and beautiful, rosy interpretation that everything is nice, but at the same time, I also don't want to be creating the most horrible interpretation of all. I'm going to use my rational and neutral approach by accepting that I just don't know. So instead of bringing all types of negative interpretations that people around me are evil, they have cruel intentions, they're trying to humiliate me, and stories like that, I'll just accept the fact that I have no idea about the motivation of these people. In that way, we can avoid the positive interpretation that is full of rainbows and unicorns, and also I'm avoiding the extremely negative interpretation that everybody is a bad person or trying to humiliate me or start some type of aggression or fight against me. This also applies to the narrative that we create about ourselves and about our condition. For example, when you are stuck in traffic, what is your interpretation of that situation? Do you automatically assume that you are losing your life, that you're trapped, that you're wasting your time? Or do you take that as a quiet moment for you to think a little bit about your day? See, this is going to help us to be in the present moment. I have a video about that in arata.se/hello05, and that helps us to see the world as it really is without feeding all types of crazy fantasies in our heads. A good way to understand our habits is to think a little bit about what do we have right now, what do we want to keep, and what do we want to change. Make a list. You can write here in the comments what type of habits do you want to cultivate, what type of habits would you like to change. And here are a few extra ideas. Automatic behaviors and repetitive thoughts. Which ones do you have? And what type of repetitive thoughts are harming you? See, even the negative thoughts, sometimes they have a positive intention. When you get extremely angry and you start to curse everybody around you, it is a way that you have found to release your anger. But this type of outburst, even though it might feel a little bit, give you a little bit of relief in that moment one, in moment two and beyond, you will regret it. So you have mid and long-term losses. So what we want is to restructure our habits in a way that we always have good first, mid, and long-term benefits, and replace the habits that are causing harm in some of these points in our timeline. I made an ebook that I hope can help you to change the habits that you don't want to keep anymore, and also to install positive and good habits in your life. And you can download the ebook now by going to the link arata.se/ebook habits.